we'll move on. Dutch farmers are protesting over emissions. Now, in the Netherlands, lawmakers have voted on proposals to slash emissions and of damaging pollutants. Nitrogen emissions, to be exact. The Hague, Netherlands, farmers protest around the Netherlands as lawmakers voted Tuesday on proposals to slash emissions of damaging pollutants, a plan that will likely force farmers to cut their livestock herds or stop work altogether. Now, nothing wrong with cutting emissions, we need to do it, but when you start forcing it onto people at this extent, it becomes untenable. You're asking dairy farmers and beef farmers in Netherlands to cut their nitrogen emissions by 70%. Do you know how they do that? If they have 100 cows, they have to get rid of 70 of them. How's that going to fucking work? It's not. They will get rid of them. They won't make any money. They won't be able to feed their kids, and they won't be able to feed their kids because there's no fucking food. If you get rid of 50 to 70 and 90% in some regions, 90% of emissions, the way that they have to do it is they have to get rid of the cattle. They can't afford to put in clean nitrogen filters into their sheds. They can't afford to change their feed. They can't afford to fucking do it because there's a massive grain shortage at the moment anyway in Europe. And you're pinning it all on these fucking farmers. Now, they're not taking it. They're going around. They are fucking throwing poo at politicians. They are blocking streets. They are... Look at them. There's 40,000 of them protesting at the moment. Clashing with police, blocking roads. They're not fucking having it. They are getting crushed by the government at the moment with these new laws that they're trying to bring in. You can't. It's not sustainable. You're talking about building a sustainable, ecosystem and sustainable globe, but how is it sustainable when you're making farmers get rid of 70 to 90% of their cattle, even 50%? Now, in the Netherlands, they don't have as much land mass here as like we do in Australia, so their cattle is located in smaller farms and that, which means that they don't have as much grazing land, which means they have to use nitrogen-rich foods to feed them so they can keep producing milk and whatever else they're using with beef or whatever. The government says emissions of nitrogen oxide and ammonia which livestock produce must be drastically reduced close to nature areas that are part of a network of protected habitats. See, that's close to nature areas. You know who lives out in the nature areas? Fucking farmers. All the pollutants coming from the city and mass industrial areas aren't getting attacked. It's just the farming and the poor people, the poor people that feed the rich people. How do you think that's going to fucking work? Jesus Christ. Drastically close to nature areas, part of the network of protected habitats for endangered plants, wildlife, stretching across the 27-nation European Union. As tractors gathered outside the Parliament building, Prime Minister Mark Rutte said farmers have the right to protest but not break the law. Freedom of speech is the right to demonstrate, a vital part of the democratic society. I will always defend them, Rutte said, but it is not acceptable to create dangerous situations. It is not acceptable to intimidate officials. We will never accept that. The farmers aren't going to accept this bullshit either, dude. The ruling coalition wants to cut emissions and pollutants, predominantly nitrogen oxide and ammonia, by 50% nationwide by 2030. Ministers call the proposal unavoidable transition that aims to improve air, land and water quality. They warn that farmers will have to adapt or face the prospect of shuttering their businesses. The honest message is that not all farmers can continue their business, and those who do will likely have to farm differently, the government said in a statement this month as it unveiled emission reduction targets. So somewhere in the European Union, they've had a meeting and they've said, all right, we need you guys, poor farmers, to cut your nitrogen emissions so we don't have to. Now, I don't think they fucking think about it too far ahead. If they're not producing food, milk, meat, you're not getting it. Oh, I suppose that the rich will still get it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them if a steak costs $25. They can fucking afford it. Or if a litre of milk costs $10, they can fucking afford it. Now, attacking the poor people, attacking these farmers, it's not going to end well for them. They're blocking roads already. I've seen them shooting like tanks of cow shit at police, burning bays of hail in the middle of highways and things like that. They're not going to take your shit. They've fucking already had enough. Livestock produce ammonia in their urine and feces. The government in the past has called on farmers to use feed for their animals that contains less protein as a way to reduce ammonia emissions. Now, if you're providing less protein to your animal, you're not going to be getting that protein back out. Protein in, protein out. So they're going to be having to feed them more food, which is going to cost them a lot of money. And I can guarantee you the fucking price of feed's gone up drastically there at the moment. The problem is compounded in the Netherlands, which is known for its intensive farming practices with large numbers of livestock kept on small areas of land. There's not only farmers being targeted in the past, the government has also cut the national maximum speed limit on highways from 130 kilometres per hour to 80 miles per hour to 100 kilometres during the day as a way of reducing nitrogen oxide created by vehicle engines. I don't even think that would work, would it? Try doing that in Australia. We can only go 110 in most places on highways, unless you're out in the Northern Territory. I think it's like 130 or something like that on some of it. But those roads aren't even sealed; they're just dirt roads. You'd never get anywhere. You'd fucking never get anywhere if you dropped it down to 80. Because that's what they do here. They're dropping it by 30 k's. They drop it down to 80 or 70 or something like that. It's something ridiculous. Christ, that's when people in Australia would stand up and fucking do something, when you cut the fucking road speeds down by 30 k's. Jesus Christ, people would lose their shit. Truckies especially. They might actually pull their finger out of their ass and do something. The government has been forced to take action after a series of court rulings that blocked infrastructure and construction projects because of fears they would cause emissions that breach environmental rules. Laws made up by other people who don't live there, laws that no one who lives in the Netherlands has fucking voted for. I wonder why Brexit happened, eh? Is giving provincial authorities a year to work out ways to meet the emission reduction target. And what are you going to do if they don't? What is the EU going to do if they don't meet emission targets? What are you going to fucking do? You're going to drive some troops in there and fucking shut down the farms? Notice they're not attacking big industrial centres. They're not attacking people, who live in cities or, places that put heaps more fucking pollutants into the atmosphere. They're attacking the poor people. Again.
Will you shut up? Now we see the violence inherent in the system. Shut up! Oh, come and see the violence inherent in the system! Help! I'm being repressed, bloody peasant! Oh!
Because it's the poor people that are going to suffer. Some 40,000 farmers gathered last week in central Netherlands agricultural heartland to protest the government's plans. Many arrived by tractor, snarling traffic. Who decided to use that fucking word? Blocking traffic around the country. On Monday and into Tuesday, farmers again took their protests to the crowded highways, driving slowly along the roads, stopping altogether. Some have dumped hay bales on the roads, and small groups demonstrated at towns and city halls. In some cases, starting bonfires outside the buildings. Fucking good on them. Some farmers have set hay bales ablaze Tuesday along highways, whilst others gathered in towns and cities, including Hague. Fucking good on them. Fucking good on them. It's good to see when people actually fucking stand up for their rights, because what's the alternative? All these people here in this Let me have a look, right? Right, that's not everyone. Look at all the fucking track. That's a lot of fucking people just in that photo, right? Every one of them going to be out of a job. Where are you going to be getting your milk and fucking beef from? They don't think ahead. That they don't care that if you can't afford to eat and can't afford to, keep your family alive, so you die off, or you turn into a dependent on the government, or is it just some big conspiracy to make people do that? I wonder. If it was only happening in the Netherlands, it might not be such a big conspiracy. But when it's happening all over the world at the same time, where they're attacking people's freedoms and they're attacking people's way to make money and produce food, which is causing massive inflation, massive fucking price hikes on everything, and they're making it worse. Every government around the world is putting laws and rules into place to make it worse. We're doing it here in Australia. They're definitely doing it in the US. And then whilst they do that, they all sit there and say, oh, it's all fucking Putin's fault. It's all Russia's fault. It's not. It's your local governments. It's your fucking state governments, your federal governments. All around the world, they keep making things worse. And then the fucking people who aren't awake yet just refuse to believe it. And they go, oh, well, it's just because there's a war in Russia, or it's just because of COVID. No. It's because of the people you fucking vote in and the shit you let them get away with. Speaking of letting people get away with shit,